Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about continuous integration and workflows. Now, what is continuous integration? If you're already familiar with that, feel free to skip this video. But if you're not, let's just talk about what it is first before getting into doing anything. Right? So I found this definition or a description of continuous integration from a website called CodeShip, and I think it's pretty good. It says, continuous integration is a development practice where developers integrate code into a shared repository frequently, preferably several times a day. Each integration can then be verified by an automated build and automated tests. While automated testing is not strictly part of CI, it is typically implied pretty much almost all the time. So it's talking about developers working on a single code base, right? And even if your project is not maintained by multiple developers, maybe it's just you alone working on it, I think CI still would provide you with benefits because you might have multiple environments. For example, right now I am recording this video on my Mac Mini, but I also have a MacBook, so I might work on the same project on multiple devices. And there could be very subtle differences in the environment to make it so that so an application may build on one machine but not on the other, or maybe like the tests pass in one machine but not on the other. And the differences in between environments could be less subtle than that, right? You might have a MacBook, but maybe you have a PC desktop. And so the environments would vary quite drastically. So through CI, you would be basically making sure that you run automated tests in a kind of unified same environment and making sure that they pass all the time. So what we're going to do here is actually set up Circle CI with our GitHub repo so that whenever we push to our GitHub repo, Circle CI will run the tests on that project. By the way, I'm just using Circle CI because I find setting it up there is quite easy, no other reason. And a short note for any of the watchers, any of the viewers who may be pretty new to development and haven't worked on a application that's in production and is maintained by multiple developers. When you're going through this, it might feel like we're introducing more roadblocks, more just kind of blockers from us being able to quickly write code and push it to our code base and ultimately just deploy that code. We're actually making it harder to do that, which might feel a little less like counterintuitive, maybe less productive and such. But what you will learn eventually when you do work on like a project with multiple developers and a project or an application that is being used by many users is that there is a consideration. There's an aspect of confidence, right? We want to be able to move fast. We want to be able to iterate quickly and often and update our web applications frequently so that it's moving forward, right? However, at the same time, there's an aspect of we want to make sure that we have a certain level of confidence in our updates, that particular update or the series of updates would not break our code, would not actually make our code worse than it has been before. So introducing these kind of blockers is might in the very beginning feel counterproductive, but actually it makes it so much easier and continuous to build applications and iterate over that. Okay, so enough chit chat. Let's actually try using Circle CI for our project. So the very first thing that you would need to do if you haven't already is create repos for your both like API directory and your web directory. I might cover a video on making this into a mono repo, but for now, let's just actually have two separate repos. That's just so much easier. So create a repo for both, and then once you're done with that, then we're gonna go on to Circle CI. So create repos for both API and your web directories, and then create an account on Circle CI. Now, once you're all done with that, go on to Circle CI and add your GitHub account to it, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be some steps that you have to go through in order for you to actually start bringing your GitHub repo into Circle CI. Once you're done with all that, go on to add projects, and then you will have a list of all of your repos here. Now, what you can do from here, it's very simple. Just click on Setup Project, and then it actually tells you pretty much exactly what you need to do. Some of them you will have pre-selected configurations, because this I do want this to run on a Linux system, and the language is Node. You'll notice that later on when we're doing, oh, this is the web. Let's do API first. Even for the React app, it should be Node because the build, although it's a React app, which is simply the build will like build you a JavaScript file that will just be used on the browser. Still, that whole kind of environment is in Node. You'll notice that it actually tells you exactly what you need to do in these steps. So what we actually need to do is in our project directory, create a folder called circle.circleci, and then create a file called config or config.yaml. And it actually comes with a kind of an example code for your YAML file, but for our API folder, we're going to use something different. I wrote out this thing right here, which in my code base, I believe I already have. Yeah, right here. So it's using the version 11 of Node. It's also grabbing, oh, this isn't the one. This is for the React app, this right here. It's also grabbing Postgres, and you would have to set up your environment variables here. This would probably be different depending on like how you set up your actual app. And then there are a few things that you do here. I think for the most part, if you read through this, it is pretty straightforward, and it's step by step what Circle CI would do. It'll basically run like things like npm install and then eventually run npm run test, right? So that's what it would do. So once you have that in your actual repo, you've done all of that, and then you have this pushed. So if I were to go over here and take a look here, you'll notice that it has Circle CI and the configuration file here. Once that is in, what you would do is start building. Click on that. And now Circle CI would right away get a hold of your repo and then actually run tests that are written inside your repo, right? And you can also see it actually running from here. Boom, boom, boom. As your application grows, this whole these workflows on Circle CI could take a long time, but I think our app right now is just so basic. It should take us less than a minute, I think. There you go. I think it passed, yeah. So you can see that that's web. Oh, shoot. Well, we'll do the same thing for our backend as well. So as you can see, it's very, very easy and simple to set up Circle CI for your project. Boom, boom, boom. It does all of that, and it's going to basically try to get a hold of your dependencies in your npm modules, build all of that, install everything, and then run your tests. So while that is running, let's just quickly chat about React, because I've have that running first. So for the React app, as you saw from previous screen, that when you're trying to set up your repo, CircleCI just provides you with a very basic kind of example configuration file. Now for your React application, I think we can just use that with only one small change, which is upgrading your node version from whatever it said there to 11.10. Because our React scripts, the npm module that we're using that comes with Create React App actually requires a certain node version. I think it's higher than 8 or something like that. Anyway, so when you do that, all of our tests ran and they passed right here. Awesome. So our backend test has ran and passed as well. So you can see the back here, these guys, meeting stone, master, and you can see that I've actually tried in the past, and some of my pushes actually failed. So you do want to see this and you kind of want to see this at least happen once so that you know what was happening. So that's setting up CircleCI. As you can see, it's very, very easy to do so. So again, you just need to make sure that your current master branch has a file called config.yaml inside the folder named .circleci, and make sure that the content of that configuration file looks like this for your backend and like this for your front end. So everything here except for this one line is from the example configuration file. Okay, cool. So once you have CircleCI set up, now we're going to talk about a bit of like a Git workflow. And same goes for Git workflow. If you're already quite familiar with this, well, you're here on anyways, so why not just go over it again. So Git flow specifically is a kind of workflow that has been popularized and it's being used by a lot of teams out there. Now we don't need to follow this religiously exactly the way it's actually set up, but rather kind of use a simplified version of it. And I use this kind of workflow for all of my projects, even for those that I'm the only one. But for small side projects that I might collaborate with a few developers, I would definitely use this kind of workflow. So the idea here is that we would create a few branches that have very specific purposes. Now, master branch, simply put, you never ever work off of master branch, and you rarely ever want to push directly into master branch. You only update your master branch through PRs. Same goes with the dev branch. So the master branch would be the branch that is production deployment ready. So the master branch should always be at a state in which you can just say deploy to prod right away. While the dev branch is, well, at least for the purposes of this video and for my like smaller projects, is the dev branch is the branch in which would be deployment ready at any time for a QA environment or a staging environment. Now, for this particular project, I don't think we're going to create a separate staging environment, not necessarily. So the dev branch just kind of functions as a buffer between your updates to the code base and your actual production deployment ready branch. But a few rules here that you should impose yourself is that you never ever work on the master branch or the development branch itself ever, and you rarely would ever push directly into those branches either. So what do you do instead? Well, whenever you're working on something, whenever you're coding, now if you go even like one step further, even for your own projects, you might do some project management for yourself and create these kind of tasks or tickets or stories, whatever you may call it. But you create something like a to-do thing that you need to do for that application. Um, Whenever you have something like that, you create a new branch and then you work on that new branch. And when you feel like you're done, you push that new branch to your GitHub repo and then create a pull request to either the master or the dev branch. Right? So going back to here. So the workflow that I will be using, and I would suggest you use as well, is having those master and dev branches. And whenever you start to work on a particular task, create a new branch. Now, if it is a hotfix, now hotfix as in when you find a bug in the production application and it's a bug that is crucial, it's critical, so that you really have to reprioritize everything else and you have to fix that over any like feature that you're working on or anything like that. You just have to fix that bug. For those kind of things, it's better to just kind of branch off of master right away, quickly fix that bug as quickly as you can, and then basically push it up to GitHub, create a pull request towards the master branch, and then merge it, and then basically deploy again so that the bug is fixed in production. Everything else, whether that's creating like addressing a feature or addressing a bug that is not as critical, a bug that basically can wait a little bit, or any kind of things that are related to chores, blah blah blah, whatever it may be. If it's not a highly critical bug and that you're working on, create a new branch off of dev, work on that new branch, push that branch into your GitHub, create a pull request towards your dev branch, merge it then, and then now and then you would basically create pull requests between the master branch and your dev branch so that they are in sync. So for example, if there was a hotfix that you did, then once you merged the hotfix into your master branch and you deployed and everything went well, you probably want to create a pull request from master to dev so that your dev branch also has that hotfix. So that's probably the only case in which you would merge from like master to dev, but then you would go through a few features, blah 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 blah. You made some PRs from your new branches to your dev branch, and you're at a point where you feel pretty comfortable and confident about your updates in your dev branch. Then you would create a PR from your dev branch into your master, and then merge it so that your master has pretty much all the new code that you've written. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And as you can see, implementing CI and this kind of like workflow makes it harder and longer to make updates to your code base. But doing this would provide more structure to your workflow, and it would hopefully provide more confidence in your Git pushes and deployments. Right. So let's take a look at what we're going to do here very briefly, and I'll show you like how GitHub actually kind of integrates pretty nicely with Circle CI and vice versa. So what should we do? Let's think about a few things that we might be able to do here. So we're going to first create a dev branch off of our master branches for both our API and web. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do git checkout -b and dev. So because currently, I think I might have made something. Yeah, let's actually delete this for now, because I don't think I have that in my GitHub. Anyways, so we're currently on our master branch, so we're going to create a new branch called dev based off of our master branch. So we're going to do that, and right now we're on dev. Sorry, I think I might need to delete the dev branch here as well, and we're going to do the same exact thing here. Cool. So we've created a dev branch from our master branch right now, and should we do something here? well, first of all, let's actually make it so that our GitHub also has our dev branch in there. Currently, the dev branch looks exactly the same as our master branch, but what I'm doing here is just making it so that our GitHub repo also has our dev branch in as well. As an exercise, what can we do? Oh, I think I made a few changes to our API here. So what is it? Right, I just added private to true, and I think I should remember here. Yep, there's a console log there, right? So I'm gonna remove that console log, save that, go over here. Let's add our changes, see what's up. Okay, I know what I did. I'm just gonna do, let's say, add a private true for package.json and removing console log. Right, we'll do that, and then we're going to push. Cool. Now, once we do that, if you go back to your GitHub, you'll notice that, well, dev branch has been pushed. And by the way, this is just so that I can show you something. You should rarely ever work directly off of the dev branch, right? But just to show you one thing, if I create a pull request here from dev to master, and I create that, you'll notice that you have this, right? And if you go to your Circle CI, refresh this. Oh, it was already here. Yep. So whenever you push, I think also it could work for pushes, but for sure whenever you create a pull request, Circle CI is smart enough to know that you create a pull request, and then it will actually run your tests automatically based off of your PR, so that when it passes, then you're a little more confident that this PR can be merged. Of course, when you're working in a team, you do want to do code reviews as well, right? You want to review your code here as well. But for the most part, when you are actually working on your own, at the very least, this would force you to know that your tests are passing in Circle CI, which would likely be closer to your actual deployment environment than your local environment would. So yeah, so that's what it is. So we can actually merge this, and so now that our master branch also has right here, right? So that's it. Hopefully this video was helpful. In my next video, we're going to look at deploying our applications, both our Node backend and our React front end. Yeah, so until then, take care.